Kyle Trask struggled quite a bit over the weekend. How is Tristan Wirfs looking after recovering from injury? And is an inter-team scrum really that big of a deal? We're going to talk about it on Locked On Bucs today. Let's go.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome to the Locked On Bucs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. We thank you for making us your first listen or view of the day. I am James Yarcho, joined by my good friend David Harrison. You can check out all of his written work over at Sports Illustrated's BucsGameDay.com. Check out mine over at SB Nation's BucsNation.com. And of course, you can follow along on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JYarcho_Bucs, and at DHarrison82.
Thanks again for making Locked On Bucs podcast first listen or your first view every single day. How is Tristan Wirfs looking since he decided not to have repair surgery on his ankle after injury during the playoffs last year? We'll get into that. There's a question submitted to us on YouTube on our live premiere chat on yesterday's episode. So we'll get to that here in a moment. But first, James, Kyle Trask, not exactly blowing the socks off people lately at Bucs training camp. And on Sunday, honestly, what we saw could be something for a little bit of a cause for concern. So by most accounts, right, and I confirmed with the media members who had been on ground all the training camp yesterday when I arrived for practice for the first day, that Kyle Trask has been up and down. There's been some really good moments. There's been some really down moments. And for the most part, what was encouraging is that it looked like Kyle was mostly making the right decision, at least. Like you could see why he was trying to put the ball where he was trying to put it, and how that would have benefited if, the mechanics caught up with the mentality part and all those things. So by and large, when your quarterback is making smart decisions, you're right. I mean, you drafted him because he's got an NFL arm, he's got the drive to or he can hit those locations on the field. So you already know the physicality is there.
Right.
What you don't know necessarily is there is the IQ and the mental capacity. So seeing the mental capacity be there, the physical part will catch up. Well, on Sunday, really neither was on par with each other, right? And
not good.
Early on, it wasn't as bad. There were some decent completions, some short yardage completions mostly. Really, it all kind of started to go bad right around the time he threw an interception intended for Cade Otton. So we talked about this a little bit on yesterday's episode when we praised Cade Otton as the player, or probably the best player of the day on Sunday, especially from the rookie class. But running the seam, right? A classic kind of Rob Gronkowski route. He gets behind the linebacker in front of the safety, deep defensive back, who in this case was Ross Cockrell, and Kyle Trask targeted him. The ball was behind him. The ball was high. Cade tried to make a play on it, tipped off of his fingers right into, where Ross Cockrell was waiting for it. He makes the play, gets an interception. The defense celebrates. The offense does not. So, but I was sitting next to Caleb Skinner of BucsGameDay.com, and we watched it. And Caleb was kind of like, he's like, that's unfortunately, that's kind of the down that we've seen from Kyle during training camp. I was like, well, and again, trying to look for what he can do versus look for what he can't do. Because what he can do is what's going to put him on the field. What he can't do, they're not, as an NFL coach, they're not going to ask him what he can't do anyway. Like if he can't throw a 70-yard bomb, just don't call 70-yard bombs, right? So you want to look for what he can do. So I was okay. I was like, I get that. But at least the ball was in the right place. Like the read was good, right? Like Cade had gotten behind the linebacker. He was in front of the deep back. So that is a good target. That's a good place to go with the ball. Just the ball didn't get where you want it to be. So not a win, right? But not a total loss either. You can glean some positives from it. Very short time later, screen pass, and Kyle throws it to linebacker instead of a running back.
That not ideal,
right?
Suboptimal,
right.
I believe is what the kids are saying these days.
Yes, absolutely. So, there's where you have the bad decision making, right? And then it only kind of got worse from there. Not more interceptions, which I suppose is a positive to some extent, but you saw him kind of make bad reads, and then when he made bad reads, he's also throwing the ball. I mean, one of the situations he was in, he would have gotten sacked twice. Again, in practice, they don't actually sack the quarterback, but he would have gotten sacked twice. And you kind of watch it. And honestly, from an analysis standpoint, you kind of look at it and you go, sack, all right. And honestly, you kind of stop watching the play because after that point, like you've already lost the play. So even if 10 seconds later you hit a guy 40 yards downfield wide open, all right, like it's still not a good rep. You know what I mean?
Right.
What was really troubling though, and again, this is just one day, so I want to make sure everybody understands, like, don't, freak out necessarily and say, oh, well, they need to go trade for Jimmy Garoppolo right now.
Mhm.
It's still one day. And overall, it's been an up and down camp. Tomorrow, Tuesday is another opportunity. Maybe Tuesday will be a better day. Really, the joint practices versus the Dolphins are going to show a lot, and the preseason game are going to show a lot. So if you want to panic, wait till after Saturday night to start panicking. Until then, just take everything with a grain of salt. But what was a little bit concerning is on 3 straight reps, 3 straight pass plays, Kyle Trask tucked the ball and ran, which in practice, you don't want to see that unless it's a designed run. I mean, you see it every once in a while, and the first time, well, okay, you know what? That's a better decision than he's been making through practice. Tuck the ball. There's nothing there. Don't force it. Don't take the sack. Tuck it down. Run it. But then he did it again. And then he did it again. And now you start to wonder, like, okay, now we're looking at a guy, you just look trigger shy. You just look like you're scared to release the ball because you're just worried you're going to throw another interception or just more bad passes. That's an even bigger problem. And I don't know what the coach said to him about it, but if I'm a quarterback coach, you want your quarterback throwing the ball, not running the ball. So again, kind of in a nutshell, that's why you come away from Sunday with Kyle Trask with a very, very kind of feeling. But again, everybody on ground, Greg Auman, the Pewter Report guys, the BucsGameDay.com guys who have been on ground, it's been up and down. Definitely was down on Sunday. Something worth noting, something worth talking about. I just don't think it's necessarily worth. Let's not call him, let's not say, that was just a waste of second-round pick just yet.
Well, and obviously this is a guy that hasn't had many, if any, reps at all. He got reps in training camp last year when he was a rookie, trying to learn the system, trying to learn the offense. And then he's in street clothes. He's a healthy scratch every single week. We know in practice Brady's getting the reps because he's preparing for a game. So this is a guy that's still in the process of learning, still in the process of trying to get his NFL legs underneath him. And no, you don't want to see a quarterback tuck and run 3 consecutive times. Yeah. But you also want to see him. You want to see him struggle in practice again, because you don't want to see him get gun shy. You don't want to see him be afraid to pull the trigger after a couple of bad passes that get intercepted. Right. Because if that happens in a game, then you don't want your quarterback all of a sudden to throw out the game plan because he's scared to throw a football. So it's an opportunity for Trask to go back, learn some more, be able to kind of find the mentality that he needs to overcome mistakes that are inevitably going to happen. No matter how good you are, mistakes will happen. You just can't let that affect you the next time you snap the ball. That's what was one of the great things about Jameis Winston. We saw him make tons of mistakes, but he was never afraid to throw another ball because he knew that he could make plays. So that's kind of, you got to put it behind you immediately.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's the thing about James. James is one of those guys who's going to shoot his way out of a slump. You know what I mean? And,
right.
And sometimes it can be frustrating to watch a guy try to shoot his way out of a slump if he's not getting out of the slump. But for Kyle, again, and to your point, like if you're in practice, like that's where you need a quarterback to shoot himself out of the slump. Like we understand, you got 2 passes picked. One gets deflected, one goes into the dirt, one goes, insanely out of bounds. Got it. Shoot yourself out of this slump. Keep throwing. Keep making the reads. And if you're making the right decisions, then we can work with you. It's when the bad throws are also being paired by bad decisions. And unfortunately, Sunday, Kyle, again, he just kind of started digging his hole and just really couldn't get out of it. But again, Tuesday is another opportunity, and more observations, of course, coming. And again, I mean, even after Tuesday, his career is not completed yet. So we'll talk more about Kyle, I'm sure, in the near future. We're going to talk more about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, what we saw on Sunday, including some running back stuff and a little bit of kerfuffle. So, in the Microsoft Teams group for our network, the word kerfuffle is being thrown around. A little bit of challenges being issued for people to get kerfuffle into their episodes. So now we have kerfuffle in our
episode. I'm a big fan of the word kerfuffle.
Absolutely.
I've seen my share of youth hockey kerfuffles.
But while the Buccaneers tried to get more symbiotic, more kumbaya going on at training camp,
less kerfuffly,
we would like for you to get a little more Built Bar puffy. Because if you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you are depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? They've got new flavors coming all the times, and the flavors that exist already are always delicious. Built Bar Puffs, one of my favorite items to eat and one of my favorite treats from time to time. Just like all the other Built products, Built Bar Puffs are covered in 100% real chocolate, and you get all the joy of eating a dessert, a sweet snack, but it's also healthy for you. All Built Bars are made of collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently, and it provides tons of health benefits to you. So you can eat something that tastes good and is also good for you. So to get your share of Built Bars, go to Built.com, use the promo code LOCK15 for your next order, and you will get 15% off of that order. Again, that's the promo code LOCK15 at Built.com. Thanks again, Bucs fans, for making the Locked On Bucs podcast your first listen or your first view of the day. Real quick, we didn't mention this segment one. We had a YouTube comment on yesterday's episode mentioning that we don't have enough Buccaneers like memorabilia or items in the background here. We are in an Airbnb, and I don't think the owner of this house would appreciate us tacking up some framed images and things. So we have James's son's Buccaneers hat. This is the best we can do out here
pretty much
for the week, guys. So,
other than having my son stand in the background wearing something.
Yeah,
which we're not going to do because
that would be ridiculous. Why I can't even believe you just thought about that.
That's so child cruelty.
Something else that is ridiculous is infighting, team infighting during training camps. Scrums are a part of training camp, and the Bucs had one on Sunday, and we will get to that here in a minute. But James, we had a question from Richard in the live chat on yesterday's episode during the live premiere, asking about Tristan Wirfs and how he looks, considering that he got injured during the playoffs last year, did not have surgery, allowed his body to heal through training and through all those things. So looking at Tristan Wirfs on day one at Bucs training camp, here's what I will tell you. No, really hardly any pressure on Tom Brady. No issues run blocking, no issues with kickouts, with getting into his pass sets, all of these things, which tells you that he looks very good. Now, he did have the one issue where he got carted off the field, but we found out later that was just cramps, and I would argue probably not related. But and again, it's a small sample size, but I don't think we have any concerns right now about the health of Tristan Wirfs and the lingering effects of that ankle injury.
No, not at all. And if he's out there performing the way that we have come to expect of him, then yeah, obviously he made the right decision to just go through the physical therapy or the regimen, whatever it was that was recommended to him in order to get back to 100%. And, I can't wait to continue watching him, perform and work through, especially this Dolphins week where they finally get to, pop somebody else in the face that's not wearing a red or a white jersey. So yeah, no concerns about Tristan Wirfs. He's still the best right tackle in all of football, in my opinion. I think many non-Buccaneers followers would agree with that opinion, but I'd say there's absolutely no hindrances from Wirfs opting to not have to deal with surgery.
Right, absolutely. And I mean, you look at not just, the observations in person, but you also look at some of the tweets and the videos that you've seen of Tristan working on the sidelines before and even during practice from some of the fans and stuff. And yeah, I mean, he's moving just as well as he did before the injury. No issues there as of right now. And, again, he could end up injuring the same ankle. And I don't know that necessarily you would blame that on, not having surgery. This isn't like a Justin Evans situation, I don't think, where, Justin Evans, who apparently is doing pretty well for himself in Saints camp now, but back with the Bucs, like he was, as far as I understand, he was advised to actually have surgery on his injury, decided not to, and it basically cost him, a lot of years. Like I was surprised to hear that he was in another NFL camp, to be honest with you. But some guys that were not surprised to hear about being in some NFL camps: Leonard Fournette, not a surprise; Giovani Bernard, not a surprise; Keyshawn Vaughn, not a surprise; and Rachaad White,
your favorite player,
not a surprise. And speaking of those guys, was watching them closely. Not just because of Rachaad White, although I am obviously a Rachaad White supporter. But again, it's the best guy for the job, and that's who's going to get on the field. But watching the running backs go through, Leonard Fournette can confirm, for anybody who might have any more questions, does look slimmer, definitely looks in shape, and definitely looks like a guy I would not ever say to his face that he looked fat. So take that for what it's worth, because I have a big mouth and I'm willing to say some pretty harsh things to people's faces, but I would not tell Leonard Fournette that he looked fat. So Lenny, do not look fat. You look good. Giovani Bernard was a big surprise for me, just because, and it's not so much what Gio has done in the past or what I thought like he was capable of doing, is more so what I thought the Buccaneers would use him for. A lot of between the tackles and between the guards even runs for Giovani Bernard in team drills.
Love to hear that.
Yeah. I really thought that, Keyshawn Vaughn, Rachaad White would be battling out for that number 2 kind of traditional runner, while Gio would be more swing pass, screen pass, maybe a drag here or there, maybe run through the line, hit an outer and in breaking route, something like that. And I'm not going to lie, first time, was watching drills, there was a run, big hole, huge hole opened up by that offensive line on the right side, actually, if I remember correctly. So there's a little bit more about Tristan Wirfs. Gets through, and, practice is a little bit hard because, there's no tackling. So it's kind of like two-hand touch. But even if it's two-hand touch, like nobody was close to touching that man. And I'm looking down the field, and I'm like, it's not Lenny, because there's a huge difference between how Leonard Fournette and Giovani Bernard look. But I'm like, it's not Rashad either, because Rashad's bigger than Gio. And it's not Keisha. I'm like, is that a further down the list guy that I just am not aware of? And at the end of the play, it's number 2-5. It's Giovani Bernard. And I was like, get out of here. And that wasn't the only time he was coming out between the tackle through the offensive line, basically, is the point. And he looked good doing it.
Yeah, I'm excited for Gio. He played well in limited capacities last year. He dealt with an injury, which wasn't a lot of fun. But I'm excited for the potential that he has for this season as well. And I'm really excited for the fact, Leonard Fournette, I talked about it last week when I was on a WTSP Wednesday with Evan Klosky about Leonard Fournette speaking about his relationship with Rachaad White, and he's answering all the questions that Rashad has. I'm excited for that aspect of the relationship between Gio and Rashad as well. Is the amount of knowledge and experience that Giovani Bernard has, I think, is gravely overlooked. Yeah. He's always been a capable guy, but he's always, been kind of slotted behind other players when he could have had opportunities to be the top back, and the Bengals just never gave him that opportunity. They bring in, Jeremy Hill, they bring in Joe Mixon.
There's a name for you.
Yeah. So, whatever capacity he's in, he's going to contribute. And one of the things that I'm really excited about with the running backs, I wrote it up for Bucs Nation, but you heard Todd Bowles speaking yesterday about the growth of Rachaad White. And if I asked you, David, what was the most frustrating part of Ronald Jones' game, what would your answer be?
I mean, a lot of his consistency, to be quite honest with you. Like, he showed the abilities, but identifying the individual task, pass blocking.
Exactly. That would be my biggest gripe with Rojo as well, was his propensity to miss blitz pickups.
Yeah.
Todd Bowles. Yeah. And that's something that on a Bruce Arians team and probably on a Todd Bowles team is going to land you on the bench. It's going to land you in the doghouse. And Todd Bowles had glowing remarks about how quickly Rachaad White has jumped at the opportunity to do that he'll put his face right in there and he will take on anybody to protect his quarterback. And I think that is a vital part of his growth moving from the collegiate game to the NFL game. Now, there's going to be other parts of his game as well that, you need to work on, you need to, develop a little bit, but that's probably the biggest hurdle, in my opinion, is adjusting to that pass protection. Because when you're a stud running back in college, you're either running the ball or you're catching the ball. They're not asking you to pick up blitzes. Yeah. And, the fact that he's gravitated to that so quickly, I think is great for him and the running back room as a whole.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Well, we are going to talk about some other guys getting in other guys' faces there at Buccaneers practice in just a moment. But first, we all know that every once in a while you need a little help. What if future you could help you? If you're living paycheck to paycheck or struggling to make ends meet, it can be really stressful when unexpected expenses come up. Now, Dave can help you get out of a pinch when you really need it. What if you could get some help from future you in the form of a little extra cash? Dave is the banking app that can help you get up to $500 instantly with extra cash. There's more money to fill your tank. You can catch up on some bills. If you have a wedding popping up and you need to go out and get a present and you didn't really budget for that, Dave can help you. The best part is there is no interest or credit check needed. Millions of people have already downloaded the Dave app to get the financial relief they need with extra cash. So if you're in a pinch and you need some extra help, download Dave and think of it as a helping hand from future you. Download the Dave app from the App Store right now. That's DAVE. Sign up for an extra cash account and get up to $500 instantly. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Instant transfer fees apply. Banking provided by Evolve, member FDIC. Future you will thank you. Wrapping things up here on the Locked On Bucs podcast. And look, scrums are a part of training camp. If you're an Atlanta Falcon, it is the reason that your practice was canceled early back, at the beginning of training camp because there were so many of them. But the Bucs are not immune to the occasional fisticuffs that may come in training camp. These guys have been beating each other over and over every single day. They're the only ones that have seen each other. It's Buccaneer on Buccaneer crime, basically. And so tempers are going to flare up. It's the nature of the beast. But, David, now the Dolphins are coming into town. Now they get to hit players wearing teal jerseys, not red jerseys. And they get to face off against somebody that's not a teammate. So maybe those tempers are going to subside. It's kind of like that brotherly thing where it's like, I can beat the ever-loving snot out of my brother, but nobody else is allowed to touch him because that's still my brother. That's kind of how I look at scrums on a football team. These guys they're all teammates, they're all brothers, they're all fighting for one cause, but tempers are going to flare up every once in a while. So what are the thoughts on your dust up or the Bucs dust up over the weekend?
I mean, it's an isolated incident, right? And that's the important thing is that it's an isolated incident. It's a one-time thing. You didn't see it happen again. You didn't see, another dust up or, a get back, kind of like an unspoken rule, like you hit me, so I'm going to hit you type of thing. And like you said, I mean, like the Atlanta Falcons, I mean, that was like day 2 or 3 of like training camp and their coaches had to call practice because of it. I mean, that's just toxic, right? That's just not what you want to see. This is just guys competing, and the emotion of the competition kind of gets the better of you sometimes. And look, sometimes like when James is praising the New Orleans Saints, unnecessarily, and I'm trying to be the voice of reason, like sometimes he gets mad at me because I'm trying to reason with him. And that's just kind of what happened. At the end of the day, we know that we want to continue producing the number one Bucs podcast out there for all of you great Bucs fans. And so we get over it, we move past it, and we win trophies. I mean, that's what happens. So the Bucs are going to do the same thing. And, so it's like isolated incident. Anybody who, kind of was like, oh man, they're coming apart or they're not clicking. Like, it's just, you're literally like 90 alpha males out there trying to alpha each other. And they're looking forward to hitting some guys wearing teal coming up this week, which actually just makes me realize that I'm actually going to be wearing teal to practice next time I'm out there. So I really hope that they don't get an early advance on hitting guys in teal, because don't do that.
Well, I mean, you won't be wearing it while the Dolphins are there. You're wearing it the day before the Dolphins get there. So you may be okay.
And it's Mariners teal, so I mean, it's not Dolphins teal.
Right, and Mariners teal is way cooler than Dolphins teal.
Right. You don't hit Mariners teal.
No, Mariners.
They hit. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on. Look, this is something that happens in football from Pee Wee all the way up through the NFL. When you're around the same people all the time, practicing against one another, tempers are going to flare. It's going to happen. It's not a big deal. Like you said, it's an isolated incident. So, we just kind of move past it. And then I still set the over-under of Bucs versus Dolphins scrums this week at 2.5. What are you taking?
I'm going over.
You're going over 2.5.
Tyreek Hill.
I think that's only going to be 1. I think Hill's only involved in 1.
But Xavier Howard is there too.
Xavier Howard is there.
The third time Chris Godwin mosses Xavier Howard, he might get a little upset.
If Godwin is even participating in those drills.
I think he'll participate at least
I think Xavier Howard is going to get a little hurt when Tyler Johnson mosses him.
Or Jalen Darden. Let Jalen Darden moss Xavier Howard. That would be amazing.
All right. Well, of course, we will have those updates and those news coming at you later this week when the Dolphins are in town. Coming up tomorrow, David and I will be at practice, so we're going to hit you with a quick live episode as soon as practice is done on the YouTube. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Make sure you set notifications. We will take questions in the live chat for both the live show and our regular show that will drop Tuesday night. So, of course, that starts tomorrow. Subscribe to the channel, hit notifications. You can join us for the live show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or view of the day. Now make your second listen the Locked On NFL podcast. Our national NFL experts and insiders keep fans dialed in with the biggest stories and the latest news from around the league. If you have any questions or topics, of course, you can drop them in the YouTube comment or the live chat. of that show. Or if you want to go old school, like many of our listeners are, you can send us a voicemail to 813-444-5841 or email us at lockedonbuckspodcast@gmail.com. Check out David's work over at bucksgameday.com. Check out my work over at bucksnation.com. And of course, follow along on Twitter at lockedonbucks, at @Yarcho_Bucks, and at DHarrison82. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire those cannons. We thank you so much for joining us right here at Locked On Bucs.